So I'm going to say a statement, and you're going to either say underrated or overrated, or you agree or disagree, depending on the context. So we'll start off with the first one. A founder's journey is a lonely one.
Underrated.
Underrated.
Yeah. Underrated, totally.
Underrated. Okay, we're going to dig into that in a little bit. The importance of a co-founder. I know we talked about this a while ago.
Overrated.
Overrated. Why do you say that?
I think, there is no democracy in my company, and I like it that way. I think it's easier decision making, right? There are a lot of, I live in the valley now, so I hear amazing things like disagree and commit. That's all waste of time. This is what we want to do. We'll be successful, so.
But don't you like someone to balance and maybe
you should listen
potentially fight with you for
Absolutely.
a better outcome?
Yeah, I think that's you absolutely listen to everyone, but you do what you think is right.
Okay.
I feel it's underrated because as you grow, you tend to, you would want to have some responsibilities taken off by someone.
Yeah.
And, you could actually trust a co-founder a lot more than a hire. Somebody who's in the job may think of it as just as a job, while you need that entrepreneurial energy to sort of carry it. So yeah, from that perspective, having co-founders is super important.
So you both differ in your opinions there?
So I have co-founders, he doesn't, so that's where it's coming from.
Okay.
Well, having a co-founder is like having a wife. So how many wives do you want? It's up to you. I had my first co-founder leave me, so it wasn't a great start. It's like relationships. So I think having a co-founder at earlier stage is underrated. I think at later stage it's overrated, especially with, I do agree with Prajit's sentiment about decision making and speed of decision making. And then I think each one of us change massively as the company grows. So for us, our business grew 52 times in the last 20 months. And so did I, as the CEO, grow personally 52 times in the last 20 months? Did my COO and my CTO also grow personally 52 times in order to manage and lead the team? Because your style, what you did when you were smaller versus what you're doing when you're a lot bigger, has to change massively. So I think depending on how that change happens determines if it's overrated or underrated for co-founders.
Got you. So I think those that are in the audience that are thinking about co-founders or have co-founders, you can grow, at least get a little bit of insight from what you guys have shared. The next one is the end goal is an IPO.
Overrated.
So the end goal of any startup business is an IPO.
No, overrated.
Overrated.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Pre-COVID, I'd speak to a lot of founders, and the goal was that it was for an IPO, and I think things seem to have changed. I think it's quite consistent across the board, and generally the temperature check in the industry. Okay, here's one. Business class or economy class as founders?
Economy, unless Rwanda is paying for it.
That's the right answer. So if I see you in business as I walk past to economy, I will call you out, Prajit.
Highly likely that we've got an upgrade.
Unless, the only time I fly business is when I have my kids. So you'll see two pesky 6-year-old and a 4-year-old running around the place. And everyone giving me the eye that what is this guy doing?
So you're that guy?
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Okay. Venture capital. So this is a bit edgy. Venture capital, the actual sector, is like a Ponzi scheme.
True.
True?
No, false. I disagree. Yeah. I think you need to know how to best use them. Yeah. And you need to get the best out of them. I think we seek a lot of value. In fact, I do something very interesting. If you guys don't like, I have a leaderboard in my board with all my board members and critical investors. Every month I send a leaderboard, and the leaderboard is how many new customers they have introduced me to. Right? And it is amazing that even these people who are very well accomplished and senior find it competitive, and they want their name on the leaderboard. So I think it's
how you kind of flip the script here.
Exactly.
Who's top of the leaderboard? Are you allowed to share?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Madhu, what's your?
We were bootstrapped for 5 years. So if there's one thing that
say that again. Bootstrapped for 5 years. That is that's very rare in the fintech world.
Yeah. And then we raised capital, and 10 years out, if you ask me, if there's one thing that I would have changed, I would have raised capital probably earlier. We had the choice. I think the unlock that capital provides you once you've found product market fit and the ability to scale and really think beyond, the horizons of what you think that business could sort of take you to is pretty phenomenal. So I think that capital and market access that some of the VC ecosystem enables is, you just have to pick who you have on your side. If you get that right, I think it's pretty phenomenal.
Okay. Benji, you've already...
I think, well, I don't think venture capital is for everyone, because when a VC invests in your company, they want exponential returns.
Yeah.
So nobody cares about 2x or 3x. They want minimum 10, 50x returns is what they're expecting. So I don't think there's a problem with building a small scale business, 2x, 3x, 4x. But I think if a founder has an ambition to build a 100x business or 1000x business, then definitely take venture capital money. But I don't think it's for everybody because it creates false pressure on founders. And I meet so many founders that are extremely stressed because the VC wants them to grow significantly more than what they actually want to or have the ambition for directly.
Has the advice changed in recent years? Because my next question was around growth or profitability, and has the guidance, maybe for yourself, Prajit, has the guidance changed?
I think Madhu and I are in the similar boat. We're like late stage fintechs, right? So I think there is a significant push now to get profitable and grow profitably, right? There was a time, during the COVID frenzy where, I used to open my laptop and somebody used to send us $50 million, right? Those days are gone. So now it is all about how do you basically grow profitably? How do you think of economics? How do you really downright focus? So I think the mantra's changed versus grow at any cost to grow profitably.
Madhu, anything to add?
Yeah, so I think we were, in our bootstrap days, right, every month we had to count the cash to make sure that we meet payroll, which is what the world has got into after the slowdown that has happened, right? So you just have to make sure that you survive another month, another week, another quarter. So effectively, businesses have been forced into, because of the macros, to really adapt a model where you are growing sustainably. It is not to say just focus on profits and cash, but as you lever up in terms of how the revenue is ramping up, there's still investor appetite to actually invest into businesses that are actually demonstrating, that growth, right? So we have been testing profitability simply because we know that fine balance has to be reached where you deploy cash to grow faster or find out new avenues of growth for the company, but also at the same time don't take eye off the fact that the business on its own will have to demonstrate the ability to generate cash. And so it's an optionality that exists. So if tomorrow I decide that I'm not going to get any further capital and I have to survive for the next 5 years, I will kind of stop my growth levers and say, let me just start getting cash back into the system. That's the only way I can actually keep the company afloat, right? So in some ways our bootstrapped DNA kind of helped us to reconfigure the business to say we will focus on things that are important. So we never actually fired people just because there was a slowdown in the business, right?
You can weather the storm.
Yeah, so we just have to kind of write that, So it was fashionable to burn a lot of cash a few years ago, but yeah, no longer the case, yeah.
It's our first business principles.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to speed up a little bit now. Underrated or overrated stablecoins?
Underrated.
There's a lot of hype in the industry at the moment. Everyone's talking about it, and it's still underrated. Okay.
And that is the saddest part about the hype. So best builders are building in peace and quiet. Do not want to be disturbed. I think there's unnecessary hype which kind of spoils everything.
Okay. So you're building at the moment then?
Yeah, I agree with this. Yeah, fully.
Yeah?
Underrated, yeah.
I'm a big believer in stablecoin technology. I'm not a big believer in the hype.
Okay. Okay. And do you see stablecoins becoming the dominant method for cross-border payments?
No, I think it will challenge a lot of global, policies, regulations, etc. It won't.
It won't be.
Yeah.
Don't see it happening either, yeah.
Don't see it happening anytime in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years. So after 5 years, it could?
I think when more regulators get on the same page, because off-ramping is still a problem, so people can trade currency in stablecoins but still have to off-ramp to fiat locally to spend. And that's where the big issue is, because most central banks don't want to touch a stablecoin off-ramp.
Okay, okay.
In addition to that, you are going to actually challenge your local currency. So for example, we tried some years back where we could give a driver actually not money in local currency in Latin America, but in US dollars, right? Then you're challenging the sovereignty of that currency. So that's where I don't think stable coins will ever be like the status quo for money movement.
Okay, okay. Agentic AI has been the talk for the last few months. Overrated, underrated, don't care.
I think underrated because the amount of fraud all three of us are going to see thanks to agentic AI is going to be a nightmare.
If it's built in Palo Alto, it's agentic. If it is anywhere else in the world, it's workflow. So that's the world currently that we live in. But the reality of it is that I think we can't ignore what's happening. Financial services has typically been slow to adopt technology. So if you are working with an e-commerce company and they are going and building agentic capabilities, if you're a fintech company, you've got to adopt and to be able to serve that community, right? And therefore, there would be a lot more opportunities on the fintech side that AI would enable, because in general, the financial services ecosystem is slow to adopt tech. It will open up a whole bundle of opportunities, and it'll all be agentic-led.
Okay, and you're experimenting at the moment?
Hopefully, yeah.
Benji?
We use quite a bit of AI in Nal already. So across customer support, chatbot responses, across fraud detection, quite a few tools that we're already using right now. It has helped us a bunch, but where AI goes in the future, I think, especially in countries across the African continent, language is a big barrier for research, for data, of what data it's feeding into the AIs to learn and make decisions. I think that's going to be an opportunity that many organizations need to invest into for it to be very, very valuable here on the continent.
Okay, okay. And then the last one on this kind of segment is, so over the last few months, and certainly at Davos, we heard about rolling back regulation, and you're seeing signs of that happening in the US. What impact do you think this will have around the world? What do you see happening there if certain measures that come through over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, what do you see? What are you seeing, I suppose, in the US?
Yeah. I think it's important for measures to kind of ease down, right? I think if you ask all good fintechs, all of us want to be regulated, but we want to be regulated as a fintech, not as a bank, right? There's a reason why there's a big difference associated. So we want ease of access, right? Being able to directly, we are a direct participants in Europe, direct participants in Singapore, Australia, where there's no bank. It's us directly being in our network. So now how do you create ease of access, licensing policy? Africa as a market, we don't have a license because what I hear, it takes a couple of years to get a license. It's too long. We need to move really fast, and that's what fintech is all about. So I think this is going to be very positive, and hopefully US, who's been behind regulations, I went to the US 3 years back, and somebody asked me for a check. I lived in India, I lived in Singapore. I didn't ever have a checkbook. So I had to, a friend of mine wanted a new passport, and I went with the person to give a check, a physical check to be sending to get a new passport. Our technology is far ahead. But having said this, I think positive change in framework of regulation and ease will lead to more innovation.
I think in general, regulations helps our business, which is what Prajit's point as well. And there is clarity emerging in the last 5-7 years where increasingly we are seeing regulators trying to build an enabling infrastructure, be it in the form of better regulations for fintech, in some of the emerging markets that we operate, we see there is a sandbox of sorts with regulatory bodies. All of that is actually trying for the regulatory community to actually understand what we are sort of trying to do. And at the core, if you really look at what fintechs is trying to do, is to really use technology to serve and enable financial access, right? So if at a policy and a policy maker level, if that agenda is sort of aligned, where if the technology is going to lead to better inclusive growth, there is no reason why they will be sort of against it, right? Obviously, there were some arbitrage, some folks, misused and all of that. But if you take that aside, I think having this clarity from a regulatory standpoint, where you're not going to have one pen stroke kill the company, is super important even from an investor community standpoint. So if there is stable regulation, you are going to highly likely that you're going to get better, investment capital because you know that you can grow on the back of that capital and the regulatory cover that you have.
So you said an interesting word there, or two words, regulatory arbitrage. And if you look at what's happening in Europe, it's a highly regulated marketplace, and it's very tough for a lot of innovators. The US starts to roll back regulation, you could start to get that arbitrage. You could start to see what happens then to Africa. What would you see happening to parts of Asia as well? But do you have a view on that at all, Benjamin?
Yeah, I think, so for example, we operate in 11 countries in Africa. We should be in 17 countries by the end of this year in Africa. And every single regulator I go to, I know one or two of my regulators are in this room, so we've had some nice friendly discussions across the table for arguments. And I think some of the challenges, making sure regulators are understanding of technology as part of your financial service. And I think the technology priority is missing in a lot of regulations versus financial services. So I think there's a very good understanding about financial services, about banking, about, let's say, mobile money for East Africa or banking in East Africa. But the technology piece, there's so many meetings I've had with regulators where there's an assumption, oh, so you're logging into people's accounts unauthorized. I'm like, no, we're not. Let me explain it to you. And then we have to do a whiteboarding session for like 2 hours and draw it out. Okay, here's the flow of funds. This is how you detect if this is fraudulent. This is how you do KYC. This is how you do AML and CTF checks on this individual. And just making sure there's technology supported at the regulation is really critical, especially if markets want to see large technology adoption in these regions. I think there needs to be a high priority for technology to be at the forefront. And I actually think every regulator needs to have like a CTO almost with policy making, where there's a chief technical officer really thinking about, okay, what's the flow of funds here? Because often I'll go to a meeting with a regulator and even two people on their same team interpret the law differently. So I'm like, okay, what do I do as the founder that's trying to build here? But you guys both have two different opinions on the law that your country wrote in 1997. That's still the one that's today. So I think that's where a lot of challenges come. And then I also think there's a lot of regulators that have been very friendly and open to supporting us. So we have 7 licenses of our own across Africa. Some of them are challenging. I'll give you a very specific example as it relates to Europe. One of the regulators requires us to have user data here locally. However, our customers are sending money to, let's say, Tanzania or Rwanda or Kenya, but they live in Europe. Europe has GDPR laws that you aren't allowed to surface customer data anywhere else. So which regulator do you follow? Do you follow the European regulator, or do you follow the local regulator in the local African market, which both demand the same thing? And then that's their laws, it's not my law. So you're, as a founder, you're sitting in between and you're like, okay, which one do you guys want to agree on? And then that takes so much time for the agreement. And then finally, okay, fine, maybe that makes sense. And then that's 8 months down the line. 8 months down the line in a startup, just for one decision is death.
It's a long time.
So I think it's very expensive when those decisions take a long time to be made, especially when you have more international organizations trying to operate in local jurisdictions.
So I really like that soundbite. I think I'm going to steal that. Regulators need a CTO. I think at MAS, I was quite fortunate when I was there a few years back that there were a number of people that understood technology, maybe not to the degree of the industry, but could at least grasp the concepts of decentralization. I think that's something. I think at GFTN we'll start to unpack that.
Passporting here, which has been just today, is super powerful because it will actually enable the whole licensing regime to be on a one common standard. Yeah,
absolutely. It could be a game changer, I think, and encourage other jurisdictions to do something similar. I think Europe has something with their e-money licenses, and that has helped, and PSD as well has kind of helped. We're going to switch gears a little bit now as well onto yourselves, your individuals. So, there was a question I'd asked, around what word or words best defines your entrepreneurship journey to date. Rather than go down the line, I think I'll start with you, Benji. You shared a few things the other day. What would you say best defines your journey to date?
Faith would be the thing. I mean, let me give you some context. So I grew up in Dar es Salaam, man. I never thought I'd start a tech company. I never thought we'd have offices in London and New York, or moving $1 billion to East Africa. I was just like a kid in Dar. You know, I got the scholarship, took me to America, moved to America. 2017, started trying to build Nala. Didn't raise any funding, was bootstrapped. 2018, I finally convinced the co-founder to join. We applied to Y Combinator 6 times, got rejected 5 times. 2019, got accepted to Y Combinator. We're going to demo day. My co-founder quits 1 week before demo day. I can't raise money. 2020, we're building this product in Tanzania, spinning our wheels, failing. The largest telecom sends me a cease and desist letter. I'm getting called into meetings and arguments in court cases. 2020, pandemic happens, have to shut down the whole old business. 2021, we're pivoting the business into cross-border payments and didn't have much money left. We had 6 months of runway left. Company almost ran out of money 5 times by this point. I was borrowing money from friends just to keep the company going. That was the same time I actually met Prajit. I was introduced to him on a Zoom call, and he was like, hey, I'm 300 people. I'm going to be moving to San Francisco. Now he's 1,000 people. And so like, he's like, don't worry, you'll figure it out. And, you know, 2021, I never lived in England before, tried to get customers. I was telling my investors, I'm going to build this cross-border payments business from England. They're like, dude, you've never even lived in England before. Yeah, right. So I bought this is pandemic time, so Tanzania, we were red listed for most of the countries. So I was taking my Tanzanian passport, and I couldn't even get to England unless I spent 14 days outside of Tanzania, somewhere else. So I actually went to Uganda 14 days, and then I went to England. And I would sit outside the mosque and the church in East London, in Dagenham, Milford, and try to find customers. And I'd stop anybody walking outside of the church. Are you Kenyan? Yeah. Okay, how do you send money to Kenya? Oh, can you try this app? And everybody thought I was a scammer. And they're like, yo, this guy's a scammer. So my first 500 customers I actually have on WhatsApp till today. If I type in username on my phone, in my contacts, you can see them. And so from there, we moved from 500 customers to 4 years later, 500,000 customers. And we raised $50 million since. So, you know, faith is believing you can see something when everybody else doesn't believe it, right? And so, you know, I was like, cool, coming to England, our team was 4 people when I was coming to England. Today we're 150 in the last 20 months. And, you know, that journey of even getting there, honestly, like I pray every morning, I'm like, God, give me wisdom, give me strength, and help me make good decisions. And, you know, as we talked about earlier, the founder's journey is very lonely. It's very challenging, lots of frustrations every day. When I talked to Madhu and Prajit and you the other night, just hearing and learning from each other is massively valuable for me. You know, my company is much smaller than both these guys' companies, but I'm inspired by them, you know, being able to sit down and be able to learn from them. They're role models I look up to. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of you in the audience, you know, see them and, as well as people, because I never thought I'd be ever sitting on a stage in Kigali discussing my company, you know. From where I grew up, like, man, my dad never started a tech company, my mom never started a tech company, my dad and mom have never been to university. So I feel privileged to be able to even sit here, and so that's why for me, faith is the biggest thing in that journey.
Wow. I feel quite emotional. Okay, Madhu.
I think gratitude is one word that comes to me. I've been extremely fortunate. You know, I spoke about our bootstrap days. 1 week before the world went on a lockdown, we got cash from our investors. That was the first capital that we raised. And I often think if we had not raised that capital, we would have probably shut down. And likewise, we, you know, 2 years out from that capital raising, one regulatory change, you know, we lost 80% of our business, and we had pivoted just 6 months before that, you know, change that happened. Again, we would have just, you know, been in the graveyard if we had not done that. So in some sense, you could say this is just foresight to do stuff, but it's always, you know, just to think about, you know, what he mentioned about faith is also about gratitude for the fact that some of these things actually fall in place. You think that you're lucky, but it's a lot of that hard work that manifests into folks coming in and helping, and, you know, so therefore, how much you're able to pay it forward, how much you're able to actually help, you know, because you don't know what magic hand and the invisible hand that's actually helping you behind the scenes. So I have a ton of gratitude, whether it's our team. So every guy who goes out of our company for whatever reason, for better career, I make it a point to actually speak to them because they are ambassadors of our company going out, right? So, and I profoundly kind of thank them. So I have like an hour in the week slotted just for, I wouldn't call it exit interviews, but folks who are going out for whatever reason. And we'll have like, at the scale that we are in, every week there's at least half a dozen people who are moving out. So it's a 5-minute chat, but it leaves an impact, right? So in them knowing that, we really cared about the work that they did for the company. So yeah, that's just the gratitude part of it and how we are able to put it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because a lot of people talk about this, but having met you a few times now, and obviously way back in 2020, you absolutely live that. Yeah, 100%. Okay, Prajit.
Yeah, I think the word resilience is, I think, something which is very resonant for me. And, like our story is similar to Benji's story. So, we've got a tearjerker which already happened, so I don't want to try the whole thing again. But, I gave you all the data we do today, 1,000 people, etc. We've had like 5 times where we almost were not going to be able to make payroll. Right, like, I've never spoken about it publicly, but I actually offered, back in 2014 and those days we were called Instagram, founders of Wise to buy the company for $30,000. Right, like, so, we've been through all kind of shit. Like, I think our journey has never been like this. Our journey has been very tumultuous. And I always think the fact that if I was not resilient, and if we would have really broken down, right? Like, crazy example, COVID, we had $70 million in the bag. The final version of the shareholder and the subscription agreement is being circulated. And somebody was putting 40 million, no response. 1 week later, no response. And then they write back to us saying, hey, you know what, we are not going to be investing right now. And you have to remember the fact that we went from a euphoric moment that, oh, that was the largest raise then, $70 million, to saying, shit, we've got only 3 months of money left for not being able to make payroll. So it's, startup journey is never smooth. It's, a lot of things are going to break, and it's how you kind of overcome this. And I think all of us say that it's a very lonely journey. The lonely journey is because, your world is collapsing, but you need to walk into the office with the biggest smile and saying, we are kicking ass, and you know what, we will be more valuable than Apple the next day, right? Like, that's the way you have to show your persona, because everything is related to the founder persona. As the founder is looking beat up, guess what? Everyone in the company is like, shit, I need to get out of this here right now, right? So I think, so the lonely journey stems of the fact that founders are men of multiple and women of multiple faces. Right? Irrespective of what's happening, we have to have this, like, we are kicking ass kind of smile. But resilience is something which has really been important. So whenever I meet young founders, especially who are just starting out, I'll always ask them that, how resilient are you going to be? Your world is collapsing. Your family hates you because you're not spending any time with them. Your friends hate you because you're not spending any time with them. People hate you because you're making cost cuts and you're taking a lot of those things. So how can you take it? And a lot of people can't.
Yeah, no, I think that's very powerful. And I think when we think about the word resilience, there are so many layers to that word. And obviously your experiences, Benji, and yours, Prajit, as well. I think there's probably a 2-hour session, maybe a masterclass we can do here next year on just resilience and the different layers of that resilience, because people kind of think that being a founder is cool, it's fun. Hey, Mum, Dad, I own a business, but it's certainly not that way. And knowing your journey and just hearing your journey there, which is very touching, you have to be able to get back up again and constantly pick yourself up. Whatever mantra you have, if it's the gratitude piece or around karma, you will start to kind of constantly, that will be your body language and picking your team up.
Funnily, one of my favorite songs for a startup founder and is a song, actually a South African band called Chuma Uma. If you get knocked down, you stand up again. So it's like it resonates a founder's journey, because we kept getting knocked down. Like, even at our stage, we get knocked down. It's how quickly you stand up and smile.
Same day, morning and afternoon are very different. But I kind of, just to add to what Prajit said, right? If you look at an ECG monitor, if if you think of life is there, it has to go up and down. So entrepreneurship is just about that. So you have to kick yourself up. You'll have a great morning, you get off an investor call, and you feel like shit, right? So that is the reality of life. And in the next moment, you've got to get onto a customer call where you probably win a deal. It kind of springs back right up, right? So you actually get resilient because you don't have a choice. You just have to adapt to what he just articulated.
But it's almost like you're wired that way anyway. So it's, yes, you're resilient, but it, to a degree, an element of that has to come naturally.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's constantly telling yourself every day, right, I've got to pick myself up, but you'll be that way. But guys, if anyone's going to attend the Founders Rock tonight, Prajit's going to sing that song for everyone. So make sure you're there. He's got backing singers with him as well. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I've got so many more questions. I do want to open it up to the audience as well. So if there are questions, you can raise your hand, and we'll see if we can get a mic over. But before we do that, there was a question I had around, so a lot's changed since the start of the funding winter. And the question I kind of had, if we could do it as a quick fire rapid round, is, what have you stopped? What have you started? What have you doubled down on? Because the world has changed in the last 2-3 years, certainly for the fintech sector. So I'm going to start with you, Madhu.
Yeah, I think we would do a lot of experiments which were expensive, so that definitely has been shelved. So a lot of the hobby activities that we would do as a company is completely stopped.
And started?
Yeah, and we would have doubled down on things that are working. Naturally, we'll actually double down. And what is the other one? Sorry.
So it was stop, start, double down.
Yeah, I think we started looking more at the Excel sheets closely. So,
okay.
So you just have to keep track of every number, because I think the narrative around this whole profitability, what it has done is it has actually created a false, facade around every business will automatically turn profitable. That's not the case. So there are the reason why risk capital exists, venture capital ecosystem exists, is that there are certain businesses where they will find that path to profitability over time. So it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. Amazon for the longest time was not profitable, for an example.
There was a reason for that, though.
Yeah. So therefore, I think, but just to have what your North Star metrics are and to be able to track that, we started doing that more closely after the whole sort of slowdown happened, because that's what you're going to peg the business on. That's what you need to align your investors to start thinking about, because guess what? The guys who are sitting on your cap table will actually go and talk to other investors who could potentially become your future investors. So you need to actually have that narrative go out through them to be able to communicate. It's not always about the bottom line. Nobody cares how much cash you actually generated in dollar terms for that month, but directionally where the company's kind of headed, right? So, we were forced into doing that, which is a good habit in hindsight. Yeah.
Okay. Stop, start, double down.
Stopped being nice.
I don't think you were ever nice.
That's true. I'm getting roasted on stage.
Francesca will attest to that.
So yeah, I think just for context on that one, if you're a founder, you got to call a spade a spade. When things not working, it's not working. Like if you need to fire somebody, you got to fire somebody. And oh yeah, don't worry, we'll find them another role at the company. No, you're wasting time. Just exit them from the business and move on. So that definitely stopped. By the way, you probably don't want to work at Nala. The second thing started, I think we had just received our funding when funding winter happened. So we just raised $10 million. And then our competitors had raised a bunch more money than we did. And I was like, okay, in order for us to survive, we have to chase to become profitable. And so for 20 months we did that, and we became profitable last year for the first time. So first time within 20 months. So that did lead to a lot of things that we couldn't bet on that I wanted to bet on. So that was a lot harder, because like when I went to raise money last year, everyone's like, oh, well, your competitor did this, this, and this. I'm like, yeah, but look at the cash I generated per dollar spent. Our capital efficiency ratio is higher than any of our competitors, by far. There's no comparison. So that is how we raised the $40 million. It's one of the largest Series A in Africa ever. and then double down on similar to the first one, what we stopped is probably being blunter. So with company's 150 people, but I've hired over 220 people. Only 4 people have left Nala by personal choice. That's it.
Well, that's pretty good. Prajit?
Yeah, I think Stop was all my experiments. We had a crypto division, we had a local payment divisions. So I wrote an email to my exec saying we're going to stop all Prajit's experiment. I think they went out for a drink behind my back to celebrate that. So that was Stop. Start was basically doubling down on effectiveness. Managers like to hide average performers all around. So I think we started going really deep in terms of performance management, exiting bottom 10% year on year. We went into deep around creating a business case. Earlier license application was we should go and apply a license in Brazil, and then put in efforts. Now there's a business case, somebody takes a lead, what will the value, how much money we'll make, etc. So we become a bit more structured, I think a bit more large company. Double down is, we were very good at 2 things. We were very good at issuing single issue virtual cards, which we now issue 60 million a year. But our largest competitor actually issues 140 million a year. So now we want to get closer to them. And we were really good at real-time cross-border payments. So I think those are 2 places where we've significantly doubled down and we can see the value in it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We are out of time. I'm going to have one last question. Hopefully Sharanjit doesn't tell me off. The last question is, what advice, and this is the typical last question for a group of founders. So if you've got one sentence, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs, either early stage, in the audience?
Yeah,
all 10 of them.
Yeah, let me go first. I personally think that resilience piece, which I mentioned, right? If you're not resilient, if you don't think you can last, then basically don't do it. It's a lifestyle choice. You will ruin more things than make it better. Don't do it for the fun or the cool part of it that you get to be on stage, or you can be as cool as Benji, wearing white slippers to the stage. But
it's the first time it's been commented on.
Right, I was waiting for a question where I can bring the white slippers.
So somebody stole his shoes, so they're the only ones available.
But resilient fintech, being a founder, CEO looks cool from outside, but if you're not built with it, you're not resilient, you're not going to be working 18 hours a day, you don't come to office at 6 a.m. and leave the last to lock, don't do it. It's not fun.
Okay.
I think it takes a lot of toll personally if you start a company. Best way to get that fast track is to actually work in a company of a similar nature. Just train yourself and be comfortable with that chaos. That is a good test for you to assess whether you are meant for it or not, right? Before jumping right in, really get into an organization which is doing it. Don't work for money. If you have to work for free, you just work for free, but really understand what it takes to be, in a startup sort of environment. That will actually help you understand what it takes to run. And then if you decide to run, I think there's no better way, to learn it on the job. So yeah. If you feel that you've got that in you, don't doubt yourself, jump right in and experience it. Right? And it's life-changing for sure. It makes you, it makes you humble. It makes you, value everything that comes with it. So if you get a chance, don't doubt yourself. At best, in a year or 2 you will fail, but the learnings are for a lifetime. So yeah, that would be my advice. Yeah.
Nice.
When I was in school in Tanzania, I used to be on academic probation because I didn't perform well in high school. And my mom always told me, Benji, if you don't take responsibility, you will take orders. And that's the principle of life. So as you build a company, if you don't take responsibility of the company, you'll take orders. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, we are absolutely out of time now. Sorry, there's no questions, but if you want to speak to these guys, they'll be making their way out this way. Please put your hands together for 3 amazing founders.